So as we go through the information session today, I would like to just call out to the folks that are joining us that we are recording the session so that we can share it with others online after the session concludes. And it also means that we would love to engage with your questions, and those questions are best submitted through the chat function. So what we'd love to do is have you submit your questions throughout the conversation today, just as they come to you. And what we'll do is weave in the responses where they kind of make sense, and then we'll create some space at the end as well to take additional questions. We're trying to keep this as succinct and efficient as possible in our timing, but we really want to make sure that your questions get addressed. So let me start by introducing the team joining us today. The info session will be led by Dr. Cleveland Justice. He is the program director for the Executive Leadership Program. It will be supported by Heather Ogle, and Heather is our program manager for the Executive Leadership Program. And joining us as well as our enrollment coach, Christy Craig, who you will work through to enroll in the program. Those are, and again, I'm Kirsten. Thanks for joining us. Let's go to the next slide, and I will hand it over to Dr. Justice.
Thanks so much, Kirsten, and thanks everybody for joining us during your workday. Really excited about this program. We just ended a terrific cohort just a couple months ago, and been hearing about all their great changes that have been happening in their organizations. So really excited to be leading this. And I would just echo everything that Kirsten said. Feel free to jump in with questions. It would also be helpful if you could in the chat, maybe just introduce yourself, just your organization and kind of what you might be hoping to get out of the Executive Leadership Program. So what I'll do if while you're doing that is just introduce the program and tell you a little bit about it, but we'd like to make more time for your questions and kind of what you're curious about. But the program is organized around 4 key pillars that you see on the slide that are the threads throughout the program and really differentiate us between many of the other programs that you may be considering. The first is the top-notch leadership curriculum. We've been doing this program for quite a number of years, but we're always revising it with the leading publications, both academic and practitioner, Harvard Business Review, Stanford Social Innovation Review, and in other top publications that are of interest to people and that our leaders and that others have found to be incredibly effective in creating transformation. The second pillar is one that we hear is just a favorite for everybody, is the opportunity to get 360 confidential feedback on your leadership style, which sounds, for some people can sound intimidating, but is something that our participants just get so much out of because people are so busy running their organizations that they don't often have time to get feedback from their bosses, from their peers, from their subordinates. And we use that in combination with the third pillar, which is coaching. Our coaches are highly trained, nationally certified coaches that take the information from your 360s and then use that as a thread throughout the program so you can take the information and use it to better yourself and your leadership style in working with your teams. And then finally, the fourth pillar is the organizational transformation plan. This is something that we start on day 1 and continues through the 12 weeks. We break you up into small groups, which we call home groups, where you identify some areas that you want to work on in your organization, and you get feedback from one another, from instructors, from me, and from our speakers on how you can use the tools from this program to create change in your organization. Let's go to the next slide. So the curriculum is focused around these 10 topics that correlate to our sessions, 10 of our 12 sessions. And a number of these we've updated. Kirsten and I spent a lot of time about 9 months ago revising the curriculum, especially given some of the current challenges in society and also remote leadership. So we added a section on inclusive leadership and bias, that was very highly regarded by our last participants. We included a piece on mindful leadership and just the real benefits to mindfulness in terms of enhancing leadership practice. And then, of course, remote leadership. That's becoming, even with where COVID's going or not going, and that has, going to continue to be a threat. We're going to have to lead more and more effectively in remote teams. So those are some of the particularly new areas we added this year that have been very effective. Let's go to the next slide. The other thing that we thread through this program are case studies, and we know that you're all busy. We know that you're running organizations. You have a lot of demands in your time, so we don't give you a lot of reading in the ways that a lot of programs do. We actually bring real live executives into our sessions that are presenting a dilemma, a challenge, something that ties to the day's topic. So these are samples of our speakers, our case study speakers that presented in our last cohort, and we'll likely have some of these folks back, and we'll bring in some new ones. But for instance, we have Dr. Steve Lockhart, who is the former Chief Medical Officer of Sutter Health, talking about his challenges in terms of leading a very large multi-billion-dollar healthcare program. We had Kirsten Toby, who is a founder of Revolution Foods, and talking about her journey doing a startup that's now turned into a $300 million venture capital led and very successful business. And you can see some of the other names and others. So that was something that I think people found just added so much to the overall content and structure, to be able to hear from real live executives and some of the challenges and opportunities that they were facing in their work. Let's go to the next slide. And then finally, the executive coaching is included in your enrollment costs. It is focused on the results from your 360 feedback. Again, they're nationally certified coaches, and they work with you one-on-one. And they 2 sessions are included in the enrollment costs, and they're just terrific coaches. And you get to we make initial assignments to coaches, and then you get to work with them and schedule at your convenience. And it's a real highlight for people in the program. Let's go to the next slide. The format is we have found we got a lot of great feedback around the Zoom-based format. We considered making it in person, and it was just actually, it turned out that it was much more convenient for people to do Zoom, and given the uncertainties around the situation, it made the most sense. But I think people liked the flexibility of the format. It is over 12 weeks. It's every other Thursday and Friday. So it's Thursday afternoon and Friday morning. And that's every other week. And so we specifically try to not impinge too much on your family time or your free time, so it didn't go too late. There's an expectation that your employer will give you time off for work for this, because you're developing and adding to your organization, but that we didn't want it to take over your whole work life, because we know that you're busy. So in the weeks we have sessions, you'll have it on Thursday afternoon and Friday morning. And then the following week, you just have a 1-hour commitment to meet with your home group. And that's the only formal classroom commitment that you have. And that's people very much enjoyed those home group meetings. It's about 7 hours a week of content. It goes over 12 weeks, and it ends before Thanksgiving, which is convenient because we know how challenging the holidays can be for busy professionals. The sessions are recorded in case you have to miss something, miss a session. We understand that. Having said that, it is designed to be an in-person or what we call synchronous learning experience. So we want you to attend. We understand things happen and you can catch up on the recording, but it's not designed to have you miss all the sessions, because the interaction with your colleagues is a very essential part of the learning that happens in this program. Great. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa Stark, and just my pleasure to introduce Teresa. Teresa was in our last cohort, and she's graciously agreed to just join us and tell us a little bit about her experience. As you can see from the slide, Teresa is the Senior Government Relations Director, Senior Director at Kaiser Permanente. And she's just such a pleasure having the last cohort, and just honored to have you join us today, Teresa, to share your experiences and maybe tell the group kind of what you learned and what you gained from this experience. And I don't know if it makes sense to take off slide sharing so we can see Teresa a little better. Great.
Great. Good morning. Thanks, Cleve. And it's good to see you all again. I have missed you, even the Zoom environment I've missed. So it's great to be back. And I just want to say I was really pleasantly surprised by the program. Not that I had low expectations, but when you know a program like this is going to be virtual and on Zoom, it does kind of cause you a little bit of concern. I did an executive MBA program about 6 years ago that was a wonderful program, and part of what made it so wonderful was having it in person and really getting to know the cohort. But I will say the overall program was really amazing, very well done, and the Zoom, the virtual environment worked really well. So for those of you who have any concerns about that, put that aside. It does certainly make it more convenient, but it also makes it a little easier to multitask while you're doing the program. So that would be one thing I would suggest and recommend as you join the program, is to really focus and make time for the class. Turn off your email, put your phones in a drawer, and really be present for the classes, because that's what, this is for you. You're not being graded, you're getting out of it what you're putting into it. So I just wanted to start with that. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. But overall, I actually think the slides that Dr. Justice presented are a very good overview of the program, and they really do hit on all of those pillars. And the circle with all of the topics as well. It's amazing what the team squeezed into 12 weeks, and they did it. And I think Dr. Justice has even said some of these can be full semester long classes. So there's a lot of content, but it's not overwhelming. There's some reading, but it's not overwhelming. So it's all very manageable with all of the crazy lives, work and personal lives that we have. For me, the schedule worked great. It was very convenient. The off week with the home groups was wonderful, because again, it's on Zoom, but you really begin to kind of get to know the 3 or 4 people that you're in home group with, and you bond with them, and you talk about the courses and the curriculum and the project, but you also talk about your personal lives and kids and jobs and whatever else might be happening. We even shared a glass of wine occasionally. So it's really that home group was really valuable. And I will just say that the curriculum, and I think the new curriculum that was added around mindful leadership and the diversity and inclusion were just amazing, and part of the draw for me to the overall program. And then the final thing I will say is the executive coaching and the 360 was extremely well done, very high quality 360 tool. If you've never done a 360, it is it's quite a process. But the program and the coaches, they do a wonderful job getting you ready. Helping you, send the 360 out to your colleagues and bosses at your workplace. And then they do a great job kind of coaching you through after the fact and after you have results. And so it's not like you're just sort of thrown into go do your 360 and good luck with that. They really do prep you and coach you before and after, and really help you get the most out of it. So with that, Cleve, I'm happy to answer specific questions or things you wanted to hear about, but I can't believe it's already been months since we concluded. I do miss being in the classroom. I always do after I go through something like this. So really, really glad to be here happy to answer any specific questions or any other things you wanted to hear about.
Teresa, I had a question for you. Well, the two questions came up for me. One is, you have an incredibly demanding job. How did you juggle this with all of your, being a senior leader at Kaiser and all the things you had to do on a day-to-day? How did that work out for you? And
I mean, I benefited from having a very supportive employer. Kaiser Permanente is very supportive of this kind of leadership development and activity outside of the organization. And it also just happened that it fit very well into my schedule, which is driven primarily by the legislature's schedule as a government relations professional. And it just happened that the schedule is very convenient for me. But I also think, again, that the Zoom, the virtual platform made it convenient. You don't have to get in your car and drive to campus or drive to some other location and leave your office, right? But I will say one of the things that I probably wish I would have done differently, and I would recommend, is maybe build in a little bit of cushion. So on Thursdays, the course is from 2 to 6. I probably would go back as I'm holding my calendar and build in maybe 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes before the course starts. So you can change from your, put your work hat off and put your learning hat on. Because a lot of us, and I think all of us did it, we were back to back. That's the downside of the Zoom scheduling, is you can schedule a very intense work meeting right up to 2 o'clock, and then you leave that and you come in and you're supposed to be, in a kind of a different headspace. And that was a challenge. So I would, again, that's another half hour, 20 minutes or whatever, but I think that would make it easier to check out of one space and check into another. I think the content was very manageable. It was such a good, you never got bored. Many of you are thinking, oh my God, 4 hours on Zoom, like shoot me, right? But the way they organized the agenda, there were good speakers. There was, it's not death by PowerPoint. You did get content on screen, but there was a nice mix of conversation with your cohort, and there's not too many. I don't know what the total number is, but I think there were about 20 of us, 22 maybe. And that's a good number to have everybody on screen. You could see everybody. There was good interaction, and then they would go to a different segment, or they would break us into small groups, and then we would take breaks. And I think I'll quote you, Cleve, misery is optional, right? So if you need a snack and a glass of water, you can go off camera and go wherever you are and get a snack and use the restroom and come back, or take a 5-minute breathe outside. I mean, it really is very flexible and manageable in terms of fitting into your calendar, but you do have to commit to it. You really do have to be, and the mindfulness curriculum was helpful. You do have to say, okay, I really want to be present for this, because you learn so much, not just from the presenters, but from your fellow cohort members.
That's great, Teresa. Thank you. And you actually have you spawned a couple of really good questions. So one of them was around what did you work on in your in your organizational transformation plan, and then another one is kind of what was really particularly helpful from the program and your role at Kaiser.
Yeah. The organizational transformation plan, don't be intimidated by this. And I, hopefully our faculty here won't, shame me for saying this, but it's important, and it really is a good sort of capstone project, but it is not a huge deal. It's not a thesis. It's not a term paper. It's not a major thing that you have to, stress about. But it is important, but it is something that you don't have to have an idea from day one. It will develop, and your mind might change as you go through the program, as you go through the curriculum. You'll begin to see, okay, I'm seeing something that might work for me, for my organization. And I think a lot of, in fact, some of the people in my home group changed their transformation plan like literally the week before it was due, but it was fabulous, because they were inspired and they really felt like it met a need. So what I worked on for Kaiser Permanente government relations is mindfulness, and wanting to bring more of the mindful leadership into my small team. And I think that's the other thing is we're not trying to boil the ocean here, like for Kaiser Permanente, like little me, I can't change Kaiser Permanente, right? So the term organization, like probably can, but the term organization means your organization, however you look at that, your small team, your small department. It doesn't have to be your the larger organization. It's where you can have an influence. So for me, it was really about creating the mindfulness and being able to help my team become more resilient, and to use that to work on our morale. We've had some challenges in terms of government relations and what we're dealing with in the legislature recently. And so wanting to help my team develop some new skills and new tools to manage that and weather that. So if you have Lori Cameron, hopefully they're bringing back Lori Cameron for you. Okay, good. She's amazing. She will inspire you. She's worth it. I mean, everyone else is great, but having Lori is worth, every penny and every moment. And she really inspired me to kind of bring those tools. So that's what I would say about the organizational project. And I'm sorry, Cleve, what was the other question?
The second question was on what specifically are some examples of what you learned and how they're applicable kind of day to day in your work at Kaiser.
Yeah, I think, I hate to keep going back to the mindfulness, but, I really enjoyed the reading. I mean, there was definitely some academic and literature based reading about mindfulness. And it's not just some hooey meditation, yoga, all of that. It's actually real evidence-based learnings that mindful leadership helps people not only be more productive leaders and, for their team, but also can help with productivity and can help with resilience and balance and well-being and stress. And so from a business perspective, from a, productivity perspective, there's really a lot of growing evidence about how mindfulness can be beneficial there. So that for me and for my job, that was a very practical tool, and I can apply that and have been applying that, because you definitely can get some eye rolls of like, okay, this warm and fuzzy stuff really, like, I just, I need to talk about profit margin here, but there is that link. So and again, I would go back to the very solid and concrete tool of the 360. The 360 was very important to me. In fact, I still have on the wall here in my office the items that I'm going to be continuing to work on as part of my leadership skills. And it really does give you insight into, where you have strengths in terms of leadership and where you need to make some improvements. And as I said, the executive coaching is a great supplement to that. And again, it's really, you get out of it what you put into it. You can look at the 360 and say, well, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to use that. Or you can actually look at it seriously and say, okay, there's some good insights for me here. And same with the executive coach. You get 2, hour sessions with an executive coach, and you can sit there and stare at each other because they're not going to, they're going to wait for you, right? So again, it's like you really have to kind of commit to getting out of this what you're looking for, and everyone is going to be different in terms of what part of the course really was most applicable.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I don't know if you have to drop off, but we're getting some great questions. I think do you have a couple of minutes, Teresa? Or do you need
I do, absolutely.
People are chiming in with so many great questions. And I think what somebody asked, and I think you may have just addressed it, but it came in while you were talking, so I just want to make sure that we did address it, which is sort of, you talked about, he asked about what's the one thing you've been able to apply in your role? And I know you just talked about the mindfulness. Anything else, just because there may be other tools. I know that really stood out for you. I mean, I can tell you something I was really struck by with you in particular, but I'm curious what else that you took away from it. in addition to mindfulness.
Well, now I want to hear what you have.
Well, I just will say I don't think I've shared this with you, but just from my vantage point, you seem to really thrive on the models. And a lot of our instructors are really good at distilling complex models and making them actionable. And I was always so impressed with you, because I think you're on the hot seat so often in a very public way in your work, that you were taking the information, fairly complex models that had been distilled down, you're making sense of them, and you're using them to make your work more effective and higher value really quickly. And I really noticed that. And I noticed it because, mindfulness jumped out for you, but I also noticed it in terms of some of our conversations around structure and communication. The way you just took that. And I think for a lot of people, and I think maybe you as well, that you're just so busy doing the work that you don't always have time to step back and look at the research or look at the best practices. And I just saw you integrating that really quickly and applying it and bringing that to the class.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's true. I think that all of the change management aspects of it are so important. And I think, Cleve, you're going to have to forgive me on referencing the actual model, but the iceberg, right?
Okay.
What the reality is, and what perception versus reality. That was very relevant to me at Kaiser Permanente, because we have a lot of internal challenges that make our external work difficult. And Kaiser Permanente is a wonderful organization, but sometimes we're huge and our structure is complicated, right? And so there can be some dysfunctionality, even though we're very successful as a healthcare provider. Sometimes there's some tension internally, and being able to sort of call that out and be more aware of it in my role internally, I felt a little more empowered to do that, to be able to sort of poke the bear a little bit and say, this isn't productive. Doing it this way because we've been doing it this way is not productive. And you feel a little bit more empowered because ultimately it is impacting the success of the organization and the success of leaders across the organization. And a leader obviously doesn't have to have a vice president in front of their title. Leaders can be at all levels. And I think that's another takeaway from the organization too, is I know this is for executives and managers, but finding ways to encourage your team to be leaders, I think was another kind of inspiration for me.
Perfect. There's a question around sort of the idea of some of the other topics around focusing on professional development of a team member, keeping people motivated, engaged. I'm curious your experience with that. And also just any of your interaction with people from other industries, because I think you were one of the only healthcare leaders, but we had a pretty diverse group of executives.
We really did. And that was one of the really just treats of the program. For instance, we had a number of individuals from the Department of Water Resources in our cohort. And I believe that, DWR has an effort to encourage people and support people in this program. So we had, 3 or 4 people from DWR. And I have been in and around state government for 25, 30 years almost. I was fascinated with the kind of work that people do. We had engineers and attorneys and other folks from DWR, and they talked very passionately about their organization, and the presentations were just fascinating. And the Department of Water Resources is like the unsung hero of state government, and the work that they do and what they do to protect us. For instance, when the Oroville Dam was about to overflow, we had the engineer in the room with us who made the decision to evacuate the town of Oroville. And wow, right? So the work that they do on a daily basis to keep that infrastructure safe and to monitor that and to, fight for improvements, it was just fascinating. So, and then we had others in manufacturing, right? Where it's that that's kind of a whole different world to me. But understanding just, there was a lot of conversation around safety, improving the safety of these workers who are in, what can be dangerous manufacturing, lines, and how to improve safety and encourage the buy-in of the employees and to develop their own safety programs to protect the workers, and just very inspiring. I think some of us even got emotional on one of the presentations where they talked about the safety record and the family atmosphere, and when someone is injured, how devastating that is. So the diversity of the program, I think, it was really beneficial and kind of gets you out of your own space, and a reminder that there's a lot out there besides your world.
I think it's a real testament to the region, the Northern California region, because we had, as you mentioned, governmental leaders. We had you and your role at Kaiser, which is really a for-profit nonprofit hybrid. You had some startup leaders. You had some nonprofit leaders from a lot of different sectors, and I learned a lot as a director just from seeing the interaction between, as you said, some of the people working in state government versus the people who are doing startups versus the people that were trying to scale more mid-sized businesses. And I think it's one of the things what's really fun about this region is that there's such a diversity of experiences and industries. And I think people come to this program for that kind of learning, and they benefit from it, because that's something we've tried very hard to design, is a lot of interaction between people and a lot of opportunities to learn. Because I think so often in our work, we tend to work with people that are like us, and this program takes a viewpoint that we benefit from, interacting in connecting and networking with people from other sectors with different skills. So thank you for highlighting that. One last question, and then I think we'll let you go and then turn it over to our colleague Christy to answer some logistical questions. But there's a really good question around the 360. Any advice you have for someone's first time doing a 360?
Yeah, this was the second or third 360. I've done a couple through Kaiser Permanente, and I will say it can be tough. I don't want to sugarcoat it, because you're surveying anonymously your supervisors and your co-workers, your peers, as well as your own team if you supervise folks. And it is anonymous, and the questions are very probing in terms of and they provide the leadership skills inventory, very clear questions around your strengths or weaknesses as a leader. And when you get the results, it's not all going to be roses and sunshine. I don't care how great of a leader you are, or how long you've been an executive, or how many awards you've gotten. You're going to get feedback that is going to be difficult. But as I said, the program prepares you for that and gets you ready for this. And then it will help you project that and turn that into progress for yourself. Okay. And I always use this example. If you've ever seen the Mel Gibson movie, What Women Want, if you ever seen that movie, it's a great movie. So he has an accident, Mel Gibson, and he can suddenly hear women's thoughts. He's this player, right? And he can hear women's thoughts. Kirsten is like, oh my God, she's using the Mel Gibson reference. But it really is, it's a gift to know how people perceive you as a leader and as a person, frankly, because there's a lot of leading with the heart, right? You think you might be a compassionate, empathetic leader. You may not be as compassionate as you thought, but guess what? When you get that kind of feedback, then you can channel that and turn that using the tools in the program and the tools from your coach and other, there's a lot of reading out there about emotional intelligence. You can work on those things. And for me, what was helpful is some of the same themes for me came out that I've seen in 360s through Kaiser. Some of the same themes came out but there were improvements. So there were new things, but also I noticed that, okay, I have been working on this for, 5 or 10 years, and I'm glad to see that that is one of the areas where I got some higher marks from my colleagues. So it's a process. And I kind of also referred to it as sort of the 5 stages of grief, right? You get the results and you think, oh my God, you feel devastated. Like, what, am I really like that? And then you begin to sort of accept it. And then you're like, well, okay, this is really helpful information. Like I said, this is a gift. This is really important insight. I'm being told, here are the leadership skills that I need to develop. And I'm in this great program and I have this coach and I have the tools now to really work on that. So I don't want to sugarcoat it. It is beneficial. It is really important to every single person who wants to improve their leadership skills. And then the one thing I did that my coach recommended after the fact is I emailed all the people. I think I had 17 people on my list internally. I emailed them all and I thanked them for their feedback. And I said, these are the 2 areas that popped out for me as areas I need to improve on. And here's what I'm going to do that. And I welcome your ongoing feedback and conversations. And I had so many people who were like, wow, good on you, love to sit down and have coffee. And I had follow-up conversations of people I viewed as mentors to help me, to hone those skills. Even as I said, 30 years into this business, I'm still working on all of this. So it can be intimidating. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, but in the end, it will be very, very helpful to you, and just one of many opportunities, hopefully over your career. If you have the opportunity to do a 360 or any kind of peer review process, grab it with both hands and do it, because it's really invaluable. I know that was a long answer, but
no, it was a great answer, and I so appreciate. I could just listen to you all day because you just have so much experience and expertise. So love hearing what you got from the program. So actually, it's really helpful for me as we dive into the next one. So thank you. I want to make some time for logistics. You're welcome, of course, to stay, Teresa. But I imagine you've got a lot going on. But feel free to stay if you would like. But just thank you for joining us. You just are so emblematic of the kind of people that this program draws. And I just loved seeing how you just came to every session and just sort of took so much from it every time. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. And
thank you so much, and good luck to everybody. Definitely recommend the program, and I will see you guys soon, hopefully.
Thank you, Teresa. It was wonderful to see you again.
Take care.
Thank you. And then Kirsten, I think you're going to take it from here, right?
Please, I'm happy to. I have the easy part. So again, I'm so glad you all had the opportunity to learn a little bit more about what you'd be getting yourself into. To review again, the total tuition for this program is $5,500. That includes everything you're going to need. So that means materials. You'll get a textbook and an additional book provided by to support one of our programs or one of our instructors in the program. So 2 books. That 360 assessment, which I think on its face is a valuable thing, but when combined with those 2 hours of executive coaching becomes life altering. I think for those of us who have done 360s before, Teresa really hit the nail on the head. There's nothing like really having the accountability of a coach where you feel safe to review and develop plans together and really think about how you're going to change your leadership. And what's nice is because you're getting that 360 assessment very early on in the program, in the first few weeks, you can then laser focus as you learn the different, as you are exposed to the different pieces of the curricula, and really think about where you want to spend more time and energy. And it might even guide your organizational transformation plan. So that's included, that assessment, the one-to-one coaching, again, 2 hours with an experienced and certified ICCF certified coach. So that's great news as well. You'll have that really strong support. I guess the other intangibles is the exposure, not only to this group of working professionals in the Sacramento area, who you will, guarantee stay connected to beyond the length of this 12-week program, but also the opportunity to interact in a very small setting with some incredible business leaders in the Sacramento area as well, who may cross paths with you again. So all of that is rolled up into that tuition fee, and we have an early payment discount. So what we would love for you to do is apply as soon as today or tomorrow. And if you can work with Christy, I know she's a whiz. If you are working to get employer sponsored payment, she can help you with that. But if we receive that payment by next Friday, the 23rd, then you will receive a $300 discount. So again, Christy's information has been shared. She's our enrollment coach. She's got that Calendly link. If you want help navigating that employer sponsored funding, she again is quite versed at that. If you have specific concerns about the program itself, she's a person, but I think actually Dr. Justice Cleve would be another great person. I know he's put his email in the chat as well, and we'll review that at the end. We would like to close enrollment on August 28th, meaning that all of the applications have been received by that time, and that allows us to firm up our cohort and make sure that you receive all your textbooks and materials in time for the first session, which is September 9th. I do have a very detailed schedule that I can share if you want to put a question in the chat. If you have questions about, when exactly are these sessions, we can go through it, or, you can send an email offline and we'll provide you with that, because we do have the calendar built out, but we just wanted to make sure you knew those exact or those important dates today. So again, be sure to early to get that out. All right, I don't see any questions yet in the chat, so I'm going to leave you with these individual contacts. Again, I'll go through each person's role and why you might contact them. So the director, Dr. Justice, you heard this session. He is our program director. He is our expert when it comes to who's instructing, what are the curriculum goals, what are the programmatic goals, what does the organizational transformation plan look like. He's really our content expert. So if you have specific questions about program design, he's your person. If your questions are more related to how do I get enrolled? How do I get through this process quickly? What makes a strong application to this program? It is an application-based program. Christy is your contact for that. And finally, Heather, you probably won't interact with Heather until you're in the program. She manages the program. So she will be your logistical savior on all things related to when do I need to be in class? What do I need to bring with me? What's the link to the Canvas site again? Remind me where to find this or that. How come we can't access this or that? She is a dynamo at that, and really just an experienced leader here at CBE and a great person to do for any program related questions. But generally, you'll be reaching out to her after you've been accepted into the program. You'll start hearing from her. So I want to just leave the line open for any other questions. Please type them into chat now. What we'll do is probably wait just a couple minutes. We'll leave that chat box open, and then if we don't get any new questions in the next couple minutes, we'll conclude the session. Cleve, is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion today as we create space for these questions to come in?
I just want to encourage you all to reach out to any of us that if you have questions or concerns. One of the benefits of this program at UC Davis is that it's super high touch. I also teach it at other universities, including other UCs, and this program is by far the highest touch program. And so Christy is very happy to answer your questions and really good on the details. I've given you my cell phone as well as my email. So I'm very happy to receive your questions, very happy to meet with you anytime throughout the program, as is Kirsten or any member of our team. So know that this can be a big decision. It's a, I think the biggest part of this decision is committing your time and energy to it. The finances are obviously significant, but we ask you to really dedicate your time in those sessions every other week and to commit to your home group. So I think for all of us who are busy, that's our most valuable commodity, and we promise to use that time particularly well. We want to make sure that you are we're treating you as the executive leaders you are, and giving you good distilled information and helping you apply it immediately in your workplace. I see a question around educational prerequisites. We don't have a formal prerequisite other than to say that we expect you to be a senior leader. You need to have been in that position for a significant amount of time, and you need to be really leading a team of people. This is not an entry-level program. We have other really good entry and mid-level programs, but we take our job of forming a strong cohort very seriously because there's so much interaction. But in terms of formal education, no, we don't require that you have any particular requirement there. It's much more around your job experience and your leadership experience. So hopefully I answered your question. Other questions?
I would say the other thing I might add to your response, Cleve, on that would just be a willingness to grow and to learn and to get better. That's the prerequisite for us. I think it's just a desire to stretch and to grow. And I think that's why we wanted to end with this quote, is that we really want to help you become a courageous and wholehearted leader who really can move beyond day-to-day operations, but really inspire a team to create the change you want to see. So that's really the outcome we're hoping to get. And yes, we will follow up for those of you who provided emails or want to reach out after. We certainly will provide that detailed calendar of classes. If you're concerned about a family vacation coming up or something like that, we're happy to send that out. All right, well, with that, I think we can go ahead and conclude the session for today. I definitely, on behalf of Continuing Professional Education at UC Davis, want to thank all of you for spending an hour with us today. We really hope to get to know all of you better and to welcome you into this cohort of leaders.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.